Hello and welcome to another Mr. Carter Science Special. This video is all about plant hormones and plant responses. If you like these videos, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you get the first notifications of any new videos that I make. In this video, you'll be able to understand what a tropism is, how plants respond to a stimuli. You'll be able to describe the processes of geotropisms and phototropisms, and you'll be able to explain the role of auxin in these responses. So what is a tropism? Well, a tropism is a plant's growth response to a stimuli. Tropisms can be negative or positive. In a negative tropism, a plant will grow away from a stimulus. And in a positive tropism, the plant will grow towards the stimulus. And there are three types of stimuli that a plant will respond to. They are light, and the response is known as a phototropism, water, and the response is known as a hydrotropism, and gravity, and the response is known as a geotropism. Remember, with all three stimuli, plants may respond positively or negatively to those stimuli. So let's look at a couple of examples. Here on the left, we have an example of a phototropism. You can see that the light is coming in from the left-hand side, and that all these cress seedlings, the little shoots, are all bending towards the light. They are not growing up straight, they are growing towards the light. So this is an example of a positive phototropism, where the shoots grow towards the light. Negative phototropism would occur in the roots, as the roots will grow away from light. In our next example, we have a geotropism. Now again, we can look at the shoots and see that the shoots are all starting to grow upwards here. We have light coming from all directions and the shoots are growing upwards, and this is an example of a negative geotropism, and this is when the shoots grow away from gravity. Now a positive geotropism is when the roots grow towards gravity. Here at the top you can see an example of this with a plant pot that has been put on its side, and instead of the stem continuing to grow straight, it is beginning to grow upwards as a negative geotropism, as a response to gravity. The shoot is growing away from gravity. Now it's important to realise that often the shoot of a plant will have a different response to the stimuli compared to the root of a plant. And that is true here with a hydrotropism, a response to water. You can see in our first picture here we have some roots growing downwards, showing positive geotropism. But as soon as those roots begin to identify and find water within the soil, they begin to act very differently and replace out a large number of root hair cells that you can see here. The root in effect becomes quite hairy. Now this is a positive hydrotropism, because the roots are actually growing away from gravity now. They're growing sideways, they're growing towards the water, positive hydrotropism. But of course, the shoots will always show a negative hydrotropism, and they will grow away from water sources. So it's clear that plants must be able to sense stimuli. So let's look at an experiment into these tropisms to try and find out which part of plants are able to sense the stimuli and control this plant growth. So look at this experiment. Can we describe the evidence that explains where the light sensitive cells in a plant seedling are located? So we have 4 different plant seedlings, A, B, C and D, and they're all held in slightly different conditions. Plant A is our control, and it has light coming from all around. Plant B is exactly the same as plant A, apart from the fact that the light is coming from just one direction. Plant C has had the very tip of its shoot removed That has gone, there's no tip. Plant D has retained its tip, but the shoot has had its tip covered in aluminium foil. So that is very dark and it cannot sense the light. So these shoots that we can see here, if we then set them up and leave them for 1 or 2 days, we can then see the results down below here. And what has happened? Well, with plant A, it has grown straight up and grown taller. There has been a growth response. With plants B and D, there has also been a growth response. Those plants have also grown taller. But in plant C, there has been no growth response at all. So this tells us that the part of the shoot that controls growth must be the tip. If your tip is missing, you are unable to grow. So the part of the shoot of a plant that controls growth must be the very tip, the very top of that plant. But if we then compare shoots B and D, which both have a tip and both had a growth response, shoot B was able to sense where the light was, and shoot B is able to bend and turn towards the light source. Shoot D was unable to bend towards the light source. It was unable to sense the direction of light. So again, the very tip of a plant's shoot must contain the cells that are sensitive to light and can identify the direction that light comes from. And here are our results written down for us. Seedling B and D had tips and grew, but seedling C did not have a tip and it did not grow. So the cells that control growth are in the tip. Both shoots B and D grew taller, but B bent towards the light. D did not grow towards the light because its tip was covered, so the cells that can sense the direction of light are in the tip of the seedling. So what is the mechanism? How exactly are the tips of a shoot able to sense the direction of light and control the growth of a plant? Well, that's all to do with a particular plant hormone known as Auxin. Auxin is a plant growth hormone, and Auxin is produced in the tip of a shoot. So if we zoom in on the tip of a shoot, we can see it here, and you can see lots and lots of blue circles which show the Auxin. When we get light coming from all directions, that Auxin will diffuse from the tip down into the cells below the tip, and the Auxin will be evenly distributed in those cells. Auxin causes all the cells in the shoot to elongate, so the whole shoot will grow taller. This is an example of positive phototropism. This word elongate is an important word. It means that the cells have grown longer in their length. And if all the cells grow longer, then the entire stem of the shoot will grow longer. And you can see that in the diagrams here, diagram number 5. So how does that compare to when light comes from only a single direction? Well, when light comes from one direction only, the Auxin will diffuse from the tip but down to the shaded side of the shoot only. Auxin moves to the area without any light. Now the Auxin causes the cells on the shaded side to elongate more than the cells on the side that receive the light. So the shoot grows taller, but it bends towards the light. The only way that the longer cells now can stay attached to the shorter cells is that they must bend the entire shoot towards the light. And you can see that in picture 5, where the whole shoot bends towards the light because the Auxin causes the cells on the shaded side to elongate more. This is another example of positive phototropism, and it's got huge advantages for the shoot that does this. The shoot's going to be able to receive more light to its leaves. It's going to be able to carry out more photosynthesis. It's going to be able to produce more glucose that it can use to build proteins, to grow, use that glucose in respiration and release energy. So it's a great advantage to a shoot to be able to bend towards the light and show a positive phototropism. But what about the roots? What stimulus do the roots respond to? Well, typically the roots will respond to gravity. And again, this response involves the plant hormone Auxin. Now, the Auxin is actually produced in the tip of a root, this area here. But in a root, the Auxin gathers at the bottom of the roots due to gravity, Auxin being a little bit heavier, so it sinks to the base of the root here. And Auxin has a different effect in roots compared to the shoot of a plant. Auxin in a root causes the cells of a root to elongate less. So the cells on the underside of the root here, they are elongating less compared to the cells on the upper side of the root here. So the cells on the upper side of the root will elongate more. The cells on the lower side elongate less, and this causes the root to bend down. And this is an example of positive geotropism. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video on plant hormones and responses. If you have, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you have learnt. Thank you for watching.